and a friend of the industry for a long time. Jim, I'll let him kind of give his background, but he spent a long time in TV news here locally, and I think brings a really unique perspective, kind of in and around communications and how that can sort of those core communication skills can aid you in your job search and in interviewing, et cetera. And so, we've long talked about storytelling as kind of a methodology, if you will, to kind of communicate your background and the accomplishments and things that you have done to folks that you encounter in your search. And so Jim's going to dig a little bit more into that tonight. So Jim, welcome back. We appreciate it, buddy.
Thanks, Jake.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. This is going to be a little combination. Make sure I'm standing in the right spot. So if I'm not, this will be a combination of a little bit of speaker talking, but also a little workshopping if you want to. So if you have a little note, if you want to take some notes, this will sort of start your journey on some of the things that I'm talking about as you go out into the world and do phone interviews, network with people, or specifically job interview, like an actual face-to-face job interview. But it can apply to any kind of face-to-face or even a text message communication with somebody. It involves storytelling versus reciting facts. So narrative versus recitation of facts. Do I have any attorneys here? Okay, because if there was an attorney here, I would have to apologize that I just learned the phrase theory of the case. Has anybody heard that term before? Theory of the case. My background is television news. Before that, it was radio news. I dabbled in a little web news, which I think the hip people call it digital news. And so my background is communication. It's not the law. So I'm talking to my niece, who is a lawyer, and she uses that phrase, and I've never heard it before. So I asked her about it because I thought that when you're a prosecutor or you're a defense lawyer, but mainly you're a prosecutor, and you are prosecuting somebody for a crime, what you do is you just go in front of the jury, you get 100 people and you narrow it down to 14, and then you're going to toss out 2 alternates, and you're going to have the 12 people, and you're going to go, Jay did the thing and he's guilty. So say he's guilty. Go back and tell us that he's guilty. It's as easy as that. Here are the facts. Here's my case. And here are my witnesses. And here are the questions I'm going to ask. And here's my rebuttal. And I'm done. But it turns out that before you do any of that, you build what is called a theory of your case. And I want to use that as the framework for storytelling. In this case, the case is you. You are making a case for you. The jury is the hiring manager. It's the person who is going to make a decision, guilty. No, let's see, this would be not guilty, I guess, right? Or you're hired versus you are not hired. Or they come back and they're like, we're a hung jury. I don't know whether I should hire this person or not. Okay? So I want to talk about this idea of a theory of the case. The case is you. And I want to talk about storytelling with that framework of who you are, what you're bringing to the table in a job situation, in a workplace, and you are going to list out all the things that you are good at. You're going to list out all the things that you are bad at. You are going to list out all the things that you bring to an organization in your past, dating all the way back to when you were a paper boy, a candy striper, a babysitter. In my case, working as a soda jerk at a Friendly Ice Cream in Syracuse, New York. You're going to go all the way back and you're going to list out all those things. You're going to list out all the things that you value, all the things that you believe in. You're going to build a case that is you. So that when you start to develop your stories, which we're going to talk about tonight, you will be able to get that hiring manager to say, I want to hire you. Questions about that. This, by the way, I've done this seminar now here, I think 4 times, at least 5 times, something like that. I've done it around Nashville a dozen more times. This is the first time that I'm talking about theory of the case as the framework, because I just happened to talk to my niece, and she brought it up. But I think this will actually work. Okay. Now, so if anybody has any questions, or if you want to stop me, because I always stop and say, raise your hand, like you've lost me, because I used to be like, remember in Toy Story when the guy's like, I don't get it, you know? Remember am I dating myself with Toy Story? But it's like, I don't get it, If you don't get it, just stop me and just raise your hand and say, can you explain that a little bit more?
Hi, Jim.
Yes, ma'am.
This is Janice on the video. I just had a quick question. You were talking about the model of looking at your accomplishments and skills and beliefs. Is this similar to the what color is your parachute model?
I'm not familiar with. Yeah, I know. I'm not familiar with the model, so I'm not really sure.
Okay, I just wanted to get that in my head.
I have not.
Thank you.
I have not read that book. The other thing about the theory of the case that I want to make sure that I hit right off the top is that my thought process with the law, with trials, is similar to what I have experienced with people with job interviews. You think of it as a single event. You just see the lights and the trial, and it's on court TV, and you don't see any of the prep. You don't see any of the backstory. So people have said, here's my resume. I put all the key words in there. I put all the key phrases in there. I got past the scanner. I got to the top of the pile, right? You've all done that, right? Some people have put like the keywords in white font so it'll hide it and embed it in the resume, right? You got to the top of the list. You got the phone interview or you got the in-person interview, right? And then you go on the job interview and people see it as a single event. It's one of the biggest problems that I find that people have, along with just reciting data, not storytelling and talking about themselves. They see it as a standalone single event, and it is not. Interviewing for a job takes a lot of work on the front end before you even get to the job interview. It should be done along with the resume building and the cover letter. You should be thinking about it all of the time. You should be thinking about it starting tonight if you haven't already. It's not one single event, okay? The next thing I want to make sure that we're on the same page about is, what am I talking about when I talk about story? What is story? And I also want to talk about what story is not. So first things first, I'll talk about what story is not, because a lot of people fall into this trap thinking they're telling a story, and they're actually not telling a story, not the story that I want you to tell when you're in a job interview. So tonight, I went onto my maps and I found out that it takes me 18 minutes to get here and that there's no traffic. Everything is green. I got on the highway, got in my car turned over. I got out of the garage and my garage door opened, my garage door closed. I came down the highway, got off at the exit, came down Franklin Road, and I pulled into the parking lot. I parked, got out, I came in, I said hi to Jay, I haven't seen him in forever. I said hi to Scott. I see all you fine people. Turned on my computer works, my battery is all going great. I got my notes here, right? And now here I am talking to you. The end. Is that a story? Why is that not a story? It's data, number one. What's the other major problem that a story needs that this doesn't have? It's not compelling. Why? So, and so when someone says, so I have your resume here, but sort of give me the highlight, walk me through so Bob, so Sally, So I have your resume here, but sort of walk, well, first the earth cooled, and then the dinosaurs came, and then, right? And then I worked at Friendly's, and I had a paper route, and then I was a thing, and then I got a job, and that's what we do. And it's just this static, staccato, rat-a-tat-tat, right? Like a lawyer in a trial who just says, here's a fact, 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 fact. Everybody who's the police have ever talked, the neighbor, the witness, police chief, expert, medical examiner, because it was a homicide case, blah, 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 the end. Okay. What you want in a story is you want a few what I call ingredients, here's the recipe for it. So when you talk about story, first of all, it's got to have conflict in it. If you don't have conflict, you really don't have a story. Why that's important for the purposes of this conversation, is because the hiring manager has a need, you are going to fill it. The hiring manager has a problem, you are going to solve it. That's how you're going to think about that job, because that is the truth. And that right there is the conflict. I use the structure. Think about it like get a cat stuck in a tree, throw rocks at it, get it down. Beginning, middle, end. You create the conflict. You have some hurdles that the cat has to overcome, and then you get them down. There was a problem that we had, and I was at the place, and I was really awesome, and we were working to the deadline, and we had 1 minute to go, and I saved the day at the last minute. And so, Mr. Hiring Manager, that's how I'm going to get a job. That's what I'm going to do for you. That's how I'm going to help you. That conflict is there, okay? Another thing that people leave out of stories is themselves. You have to be in the story. You have to be the hero, or you have to be the helper of the hiring manager who is the hero. The hiring manager can be the hero of the story. And you are going to come in and you are going to help this hiring manager save the day. And they're going to talk about what a wonderful hire I made, getting Bob, discovering Bob, who came here and he was really awesome. Okay. But you have to be in the story. And another thing that you have to have is you have to have emotion. You have to make somebody feel something. Otherwise, it really is just going to be an intellectual exercise, which is kind of like you were talking about geography, any kind of data, any kind of fact base. You want to have sympathy. You want to have sentimentality. You want to have nostalgia. You want to have daring. You want to have fear. You want to have horror. You want to have some kind of emotion. You want the person to feel something. And then finally, you want to have a point. If I told you a story of when I was working at Friendly Ice Cream and I was trying to get a girlfriend, and it turns out that I didn't get very many girlfriends. I was a nerd when I was a kid. I know that's probably shocking to you. All right. But that's true. And so I thought maybe if I just like slide them a free ice cream cone, then maybe they'd go out with me. And I tried it, and it didn't work. But I tried it, right? So, Mr. Hiring Manager, why? He's like, or she is like, why are you telling me this story? The story has to have a point. The story has to have a point. So that when I talk about a value that I have, or something that I believe in, a philosophy, or I was in this workplace and now I'm not in this workplace and they miss me and I'm not there anymore because I want to be here in your place. And now I tell the story of being generous or gregarious, or let's say I'm going for a sales job and I learned about margins, and by giving the ice cream cone away to Ellen, who didn't want to date me anyway, the margin just went from 43 to 42, and I was the reason for it. I learned the hard way, Mr. Hiring Manager. You understand? It has a point to it. Okay? So that's what a story is, and that's what a story is not. A story is not is it's static. It doesn't have you in the story. There's no emotion to it. Another element that I want to talk about is authenticity. I didn't used to talk about this in the old days, but with AI and with fake news being thrown around, my brother is always saying to me how when I was a journalist, he's like, I just don't even know who to believe anymore. I'm like, well, ask me for recommendations. I can tell you who you can believe. There are some people you can believe that are out there. There's actually some people you can believe, but he doesn't know who you can believe. Authenticity. People put on Instagram how wonderful their vacation was when they fought the whole time. Okay. So you want to be authentic in your storytelling. And what is absent from what a story is not is inauthenticity, because a hiring manager will see right through that. Or they'll find out eventually, and you're on usually a 3-month probation period to begin with. So if you go in and you sold them something that you're not, they're going to find out in the 3 months, and you're probably going to get canned, and you're not going to end up with a full-time job anyway. Okay. So on the same page, what is the goal of the interview, what a story is, and what a story is not. The goal of the interview. I have asked this question. I stopped saying, let me see a show of hands of people who know what a goal of the interview is, and then I'll ask them, because too many people just did not know what the goal is. What is the goal of a job interview? Why don't they just see your resume? I like what you brought to the table. I like what you have. You have all the experience. You have all the skill set. I scoped you out, and you're not a serial killer. Why don't I just go, hey, dude, it's $100,000. Can you start on Monday? Why do I have to talk to you? What is the goal of your job interview? The goal of your job interview is to connect with another human being and get them to like you, get them to see you in this role. That's the authenticity part. That's the does this person fit part. They want to see if you can think on your feet. They want to see the skills being applied in real time. They want to know if you're sharp. They want to know if you can solve a problem on the fly. They want to know your temperament. Yes.
It's all good, assuming you've got past all blocks, if you will,
right
on the web.
Right.
You're submitting your resume.
Right.
Sending emails, and they still think that you're a robot.
Right.
So you can.
So I would put the only 2 ways that I know of is you can put them in the resume itself. That's not just data. So you put like a little narrative. Walter Teague cover letter is another way to do it. Walter Teague is really good at that. He's really good at in the executive summary or the executive profile at the top of your resume. It's replaced the objective. In the old days, we used to call them objectives. Now people put an executive summary. He's amazing. She's crazy. Oh my gosh. That's where you just talk about all the adjectives about how, and that's where you put that stuff in. And so really the only way to do it, unless you want to pester the hiring manager and say, I'm on, get him on the phone and go, yeah, there's.
Make this scan where.
Yeah. Right.
Plug in where the.
That's right.
The executive to be authentic, yet it pulls you into the.
So no margin, no mission. If you don't get the job interview, then it's pointless. So what I tell people to do is play the game. I used to have a fight with my sister. She's like, well, if you want to be a teacher, if you want to be a professor, a tenured professor, you're going to have to get your master's. I'm like, screw that. I'm not getting my master's. I've got 20 something years of experience. Screw that if they don't like. She's like, that's great, dude. Don't be a professor then. Right? And I'm like, nah, I can't even believe it. Right? So then I learned the hard shit. Yeah, she was right. She was right. Play the game. Put in the narrative the keywords, the key phrases, embed them in the document as you're telling your narrative.
And then find somebody who gets
you. Yeah, and then your networking is where you're in your warm calls, your warm introductions. You know somebody who knows somebody. Hey, would you mind making an introduction for me? You go to a lot of networking events. You try to get people to see you and hear you. And I play hockey at the Fordyce Center, and everyone's like, why are you a sub for everybody? I'm like, because I know everybody. Because I go around and I talk to everybody. How's it going? How you doing? How's your team? How's your wife? I asked Jay tonight. I didn't know this situation with his wife. How's Heather? Now I know Heather, so I can ask about Heather authentically. I'm not going to BS the guy later on and go, Jay, I kind of want something from you. I need a kind of a job and I need a kind of a reference. How's Heather doing? That's not going to work. But you understand, that's how I'm assuming that you're going to get beyond you're going to get your resume to the top and you're going to either get a phone interview or you're going to have a face-to-face interview. There's several ways to try to do it. This storytelling is really about networking with people in person, putting them in your cover letter, letting your personality come out in your resume, and then actually getting the interview itself. Yes, ma'am.
No, I was gonna say on my resume, I've got these. Next section, skills.
Yeah.
What's wrong?
There you go.
And you pour out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go.
It just isn't. Do that.
Tom Scan's got their their job description and everything. And then it matches, oh, what is this? Oh, what is that?
I'll take it one step farther. Because I'm gregarious in your face. I like to meet you. I like to talk to you. I like to see you smile. I like to see you laugh. I don't want just the data. So I'm going to pick up the phone and I'm going to call somebody in the company that I want to be at who is in that position or a similar position. I'm going to go to the staff directory and I'm going to read her profile. I might go to her LinkedIn page and I'm going to look for words there. And I'm going to add those words as well. Yes, ma'am.
Do you give us so that they didn't play it later on? I'll do it.
Right. Okay. So that's this group here, the website. They have networking experts. They have networking information. I learned a lot of where the networks are through this organization, actually. So that's Ask Scott, Ask Jay. Yeah, there's all kinds of really good stuff. Walter's good. Is Hal still connected? Hal's really great at networking. Georgia is really awesome at networking. She's really awesome. You could just pick her brain, and she'll give you the lowdown on. Now I don't know whether she's got a scheduler that tells you where things are. One of the biggest ones that I always tell people to go to is the SHRM one in Brentwood, because they're human resources people, and they can give you other networking events that are happening in town. I'm not sure when it is, but it's a big one. All right. I'm going to move on. Now we're going to actually build your case. Okay. You could just go rat-a-tat-tat and you could say, I want to have all of these people be my witnesses. Or you can say, here is what I think happened. So now I want to translate that to, here is who I am. Here is what I bring to an organization. This is what I'm about as an employee. This is what I believe in. These are my principles. When I ask people after I left a place, what was the place like after I was gone? What did you miss? What are you glad about that I'm not there anymore? Oh, we're so glad you're not here anymore, Matt. Right? Like, why? What happened? Oh, well, you talked too much, or whatever. Your jokes weren't funny, or whatever. Whatever it is. So you want to build your case. You cannot overwhelm the jury with facts and the law. You can't ask the judge to give every jury instruction known to man. Apparently, there are lots of them. I didn't know that. I just thought that the judge goes, okay, everybody, that's the case. Now go back to your room and do 12 Angry Men, and one of you is Henry Fonda. But it's not like that. They actually slice and dice the things that you can say and you can't say, and we want you to say, we don't want you to say. You make all of those decisions. What you're going to do as you build your case, I'm going to give you three things. The three things. The first one is, what is it that you value? So if you were a normal, everyday, average human being, you're going to have 3 to 5 core things. You may not have thought about this before, so that it may take a while for you to like say, well, yeah, what is it that I do believe in? So for me, one of my big things is integrity. So I was known in the TV news business as the do right guy. I stumbled on that. I did not know I was the Dudley do right guy. I was the do right by the newsmaker, do right by the audience, and do right by each other in the newsroom. Do right, do right, do right. The ABCs of do right. They called me Dudley do right, some people. It was all based on this idea of being righteous, doing right, having integrity. That was a thing that I valued. Okay, so I wrote that down. What is it that you believe in? What are your principles that you abide by? I don't gossip at the water cooler. When A has a problem with B, they go to C. I don't do triangulation. If I have a problem with B, I go to B. I had a Methodist pastor friend of mine, James Howell, in Charlotte, North Carolina, blew my mind one day when I was talking about this. I always talk about A has a problem with B, so go to C. That's called triangulation. Don't do that. I have a problem with her. So did you know that she, oh my gosh, it's really terrible. Don't do that. Hey, I have a problem with you. Seriously. Would you just please stop doing it? Right? A has a problem with B, so they go to C. It's called triangulation. Don't do that. James Howell says, why do you got to be an A? I was like, oh, why do I have to have a problem with you? Why can't I just not have a problem? So I started to incorporate that. And I started talking about that's a principle that I believe in. And now I have my 3 to 5 values. Honesty, integrity. I work a lot of, I'm a workaholic. You can come up with lots of things that you value. Then in the next margin over is I want you to write down an anecdote or a story or an event that happened that illustrates that value. Okay? Now you're starting to actually build out your case. You're deciding, I want this witness, I'm going to ditch that witness. I want this piece of evidence to support my case, my theory, and I don't want this one. You're starting to build out your what you value and a story that goes with each one. So you've heard people say I'm a quick learner, right? People say I'm a quick learner. Give me a story that illustrates you were a quick learner in what when you talk about, if it's so important to you, you should have several of them. If you don't, maybe it's not a value. Or if you can't figure out a way to illustrate it, even with, we were talking earlier about, I'm always using Glinda from The Wizard of Oz. Doesn't it occur to anybody that Glinda says, well, you don't have a broom, you're going to have to walk. Just take the yellow brick road. But she doesn't tell him that when you get to, there's an intersection. It drives me crazy. Turn left at the intersection and don't listen to the scarecrow. He doesn't have a brain. By the way, there are going to be apple trees. They're going to attack you. Don't bite. Run through the poppies because they're going to make you fall asleep. Watch out for the flying monkeys. And by the way, it's all BS anyway because the wizard is just total fraud. He's not even a real guy. As a matter of fact, screw all that. Just tap your heels 3 times and you're going to be fine. Why doesn't anybody just do that, right? See how I just told you this little story, right? Because it was something that I believe in. I want you to know something that you didn't know. I don't want you to guess. I've already been on the yellow brick road. Bob, Sally, hiring manager, I've already been there. And I know that you're going to come to an intersection. It drove me crazy as a kid. My parents were like, what is wrong with you? I'm like, here's an intersection. How does she know not to go straight or turn? What's down that way? Is that like a prequel or a sequel or what is that? How did she know to go the right way, turn left? Drove me crazy that Glinda didn't tell her that. I'm the guy who comes in and I say to the hiring manager, I never want anybody to guess. I never want anybody to not know what the expectations are as the news director of the organization. As a reporter, you know what is expected of you. As an anchor, you know what is expected of you. Tonight, I know that he wants me to go for an hour. I could go 10 minutes long. I could go 10 minutes short. I could go 20 minutes short. I'm repeating exactly what Jay said to me because he set the expectation for me. I am that guy, hiring manager. And look, I told you a story. It's an illustration that's not my own. I just watched The Wizard of Oz as a kid. I threw in my parents thought I was weird to maybe give you a little emotion. Go, maybe this guy really is kind of a little weird, but I kind of like that. I made you feel something. See how I did that? So have the value, have the story that goes with it. Questions about that? That's number one. Number two, you want to list out the I was there. I was in the workplace. They're missing it when I'm gone. It hasn't been the same, Joe, since you left. You want to list out the things that say, I made my mark in that organization. When I was there, we did this. When I was there, we stopped gossiping at the water cooler because I converted people to whatever. 3 to 5 things, if you can come up with them. There should be several things that when you're in an organization, three to 5 things that you really like about yourself in a work environment. If you struggle with this, no problem. Go to one of your old performance reviews. Your boss will be more than happy to write a narrative about how awesome you were, that you were a 5 on your goal for the year, and here's why you were an exceeds employee, right? You know what I'm talking about? That's, you were there. Now, give me an illustration that goes with that. Okay? And that's a story that you're going to be able to tell. The third thing, anticipated questions. My wife told me that when I was talking to her about this several seminars, when I was pointing this out, she said, I Google questions, I Google interview questions. And then I come up with stories that are based on all of those answers. So in your line of work, what is it that you know that the job interviewer is going to ask? One of the easy ones is, so I see, Bob, that you were at XYZ company. Tell me about that. They shouldn't have to tell you about that. You should just be able to work that into your narrative. Or they'll say, I see here on your skills list, Kim, you had your executive profile and now here's your skills list. I noticed that you were really good at Excel. Tell me what's up with that? You should have the anticipated questions. Tell me about where you were. Oh, this is interesting. You were in Tahiti. Oh, tell me a little bit about that. Or, hey, you worked with some famous person. Tell me about that. Okay. Anticipate the questions that you know are coming. If you're an accountant, you'll get numbers questions. Hey, what's 2 plus 2? When I was in college, I said to Dr. Shelton, Donna Shelton was my math professor, and I said, Dr. Shelton, 2 plus 2 doesn't always have to equal 4. Really, Jim? Why is that? Because one of the 2's isn't feeling whole today. And she says, you're an English major, aren't you? And I said, how did you know? And she goes, oh my gosh, right? So see what I just did? I just told you another story. I just had a little, right? I'm not very good at math. I'm never going to get a job as an accountant. I'm a referee at the Ford Ice Center. And when they said too many men on the ice, I'm like, dude, you're asking me to count. I can't count, right? I can't count to 6, right? Anecdotes that go with your anticipated questions. If you're a lawyer, have an answer and an illustration that goes with theory of the case, because they're going to ask you about it. I was in a seminar one time and some guy He was totally clueless. He didn't even know what it was. But I told him the blah, blah. Okay. And now you have on the left side, you have 3 to 5 of these 3 categories. 3 to 5 of the first one, 3 to 5 of the second one, 3 to 5 of the third one. And you have illustrations that go with all of them. Okay? Questions about any of that? Another thing you want to do, if you notice, I'm modeling for you what I'm asking you to do. I'm peppering in anecdotes in some of the things that I'm talking to you about, because this is what you should do in a job interview, because you're relating to me somehow. You might think, yeah, he's all right. You might think, he's hilarious. You might think, God, get me out of here. But you're feeling something, right? And I'm telling you why you're feeling something. You're feeling something is because I'm relating to you somehow, because I'm giving you more than data. I'm not just reciting, I came here, I turned off the car, I came inside. I made you feel a certain way about something, okay? So to go along with the anecdotes now over here, we've talked about what story is. There's conflict. You're in it. You're going to make a point of why you're in it. I'm going to give you an example in just a second. What I also want you to do in the next column over, because Kim's really good at Excel, she can help you with this. If you want to like do little columns, I hope you're good at Excel, because now they're going to all ask you. So in this third column over here, what you're going to want to do is, when I was in TV, we had the Associated Press wire, and at midnight 0000 was the first news agenda, and it was 4 or 5 stories, and they were about this long. Each story was this long in the wire. This happened, highway shut down today, 8 people died, blah, blah, blah. You know, Kamala Harris met today with the public for the first time and talked about the thing, and she raised $50 million, blah, blah. It's 4 or 5 sentences. It's called a news agenda. There's one every hour. There's a second news agenda, and a third, and a fourth, and a fifth, and a sixth, and there's 24 of them. At 11 o'clock at night, they moved the last one. It's called the news agenda. 4 or 5 stories that are about this big. About 10 minutes after that, a news agenda moves on the wire. Something called the news minute crosses the wire, and that's just a couple sentences, a sentence or 2. No big deal. Kamala Harris met today, and the Democrats are off and running. 6 people were killed today on a highway. In Baltimore, the highway is reopened. Whatever. The mayor today announced he is going to create an infrastructure bill, blah, 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 blah. Okay? Serial killer was found, right? 4 or 5 stories called the news minute. Then, so that's the next thing that moves on the wire. So you have a news agenda, you have a news minute, and then you have what's called a write-through. And that's what you see in the newspaper. Long ass stories, 6 or 7 inches. Sometimes they go to the jump page. They start on the home page, and you have to go inside to see the rest of it. Those are called write-throughs. They might add an anecdote. Hey, Biden has a comment. Hey, Trump has a comment. Hey, the mayor has a comment. Oh, we have an eyewitness to that crash. Oh, the person who survived the serial killer has a comment. Oh, we have to amend that. He was actually found not guilty. No, he was actually found guilty. Oh, they are going to charge him with a crime. Oh, they decided not to charge him with a crime. All those stories that sort of pepper into the write-through over the course of the whole wire. So when you're watching the wire. And that's what you're going to do. You're going to have versions of all of those stories. And I'm going to stop you right there, and I'm going to tell you, by the way, this is why people don't do that. This is why people don't do storytelling. This is what's going to kick you to the top of the food chain. I'm telling you right now. I am telling you right now that you're hearing me and you're like, this is overwhelming me. There's no way I'm doing all of this work. And great, the guy who is doing all that work is going to be the one who gets the job. Okay? Do your prep work. It's hard. It's supposed to be hard, but it's the hard that makes it great. You got the first column, you got the second column, and now over on the third column, you're going to have versions of each of those anecdotes. Each one. You're going to have the news agenda version. You're going to have the news minute news minute version. That's for the phone interview, maybe. You're going to have the write-through that's going to be the signature thing of why I'm interviewing with you. Or I'm talking to the guy at the networking event who's the guy who's going to introduce me to Scott and give me Scott's going to interview me for the job that I've been craving. That's going to be the right through version for him. And they're all going to be ready for me. And what are they going to have? They're going to have a point of what I value. They're going to have me in it. They're going to make me stand out and be memorable. I'm going to be remembered. I'm going to create some kind of emotion so the person feels something. You with me? Okay. Yes, sir. Yes.
She, out where, and she's great. And we're having fun with that more simple.
Sure. Sure.
You don't have much rituals. From them, years, I know she's fine. It doesn't matter with you getting them to talk about themselves too. We have these questions. They ask you about your skill, right? Your career, if you trade it, if you got your notes, makes you 10, then you flip it on the skip too, and your career trick, what can you guys do better?
Right. 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 Well, another way of looking at that, or another strategy, is to actually tell the story from the point of view of the hiring manager, where they may actually be the hero of the story, and you're just going to be the person who's going to come in and be the knight on the white horse. Yeah. That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. That's exactly right. All right. So let me put some of this into practice with an actual job interview question. I apologize to Scott in advance because I think he's going to hear this story now for the 5th time. And it was I was going for a job as I didn't actually want the job. They talked me into interviewing for the job because I thought I would be really good at it, but I didn't. It was like this thing called the internet. It was like the web. Like what? Well, back in a previous role as a producer, I got this idea of doing a segment on the news called Ask the Pediatrician, where it was the 5 o'clock news. We had a lot of women who were stay-at-home moms was our demographic. And at 5:50, it was a killer segment. Everybody loved it. We had this great doctor. He was this awesome guy. And he would always give you like this little tip. And it was like this little minute 20 package. And then I got the idea of saying, okay, well, Dr. Joe is going to, I can't remember his name. He's going to go off now and we're going to go on AOL chat. And it was like 15 people could be in it. It was CompuServe was my software, was my internet, right? With the Netscape browser. Seriously. And it was AOL. It was like I had to go during the commercial break before the end of the newscast and hit the dial up because it would take that long to boot, right? Right? That's how I got it. And only 15 people could be in it. But as soon as I got off the air and I went there with Dr. Joe, 15 people are sitting there in the AOL chat. Okay, here we go. Kim wants to know, blah, 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 blah. Hit me. He's like, well, Kim, blah, blah, blah. Well, Kim, hope you are well, right? And so my boss was like, dude, that was freaking awesome. It was multimedia before there was multimedia. So they really wanted me to do this internet thing. I was totally clueless about it. And the hiring manager, John, says to me in the interview, so let me ask you a question. This is a true story. I'm going to put this all together for you, what I've just talked about, these 3 things. How much streaming video do you want to do? How much streaming do you want to do? And here is my answer, and I'll give it to you in real time. I have no idea what you just asked me. But since you're asking me in a job interview, it's probably really important to you. So What I will tell you is I am really good at finding out a lot of information fast. As a matter of fact, there was a movie called Changeling. And when I saw the movie that said, based on a true story, I have to go and research the story that's behind the movie. If it's based on a book and I liked the movie, I will go read the book. I'll read the articles. I will, dude, it's kind of an obsession, actually. But I'm really good at learning things that I need to know, people call them quick learners, or I'm a quick study, but I have no idea what you're talking about, but I'll figure it out. Okay. Now, another conversation with somebody, another person, where I think I may have talked about it in this group as a story illustration is, so I'm talking to a guy about, well, why do you want to, you don't know jack about this. Why should I hire you? Well, funny you should mention, I'll figure it out. I will figure it out. As a matter of fact, if you call John Granatino in Dallas, he works for a company called BLO Interactive. He's got this funny story. He just still laughs about it to this day. I saved him $750,000 because 6 months after that first conversation I just told you about, when I said, I have no idea what you're talking about. Yeah, I went to John and I said, so we want to get rid of Akamai and we want to go with this new company. It's called Yahoo. Have you heard of them? They're like really good. He's like, dude, you can't get out of the Akamai contract. I'm like, oh no, yes, we are going to get out of it. He's like, oh, you're going to pay this huge penalty. I'm like, oh, I know. It's going to be like $300,000 or $400,000 to break the contract. But don't worry, we're going to eat that money anyway because and what we're going to do is we're going to go to Yahoo. It's unlimited. We'll have pre-rolls. We'll have post-rolls. And all of a sudden I'm looking at it. He's like, what? And I'm looking like, what? Like what? What? He's like, I have two heads. Like, what? He goes, dude, 6 months ago, you didn't even know what a server was. And I'm like, oh, I told you I'm really good. So call John and he'll tell you that I saved him $675,000 in the second year after I got there because we switched from Akamai to Yahoo. Now, I could tell you that I'm just a quick learner, just like I got in my car and I drove over here, static, no conflict, no emotion. I could even take me out of it if you want me to, but you see what I just did? Now, that hiring manager, is he gonna like look at that and go, right? I like this guy. That could be. He might actually call John Granatino. Great. I'm not BSing you. Call him up. He'll tell you that actually happened. All right. So what I'm doing is I'm giving you that example to illustrate that one of my values or one of the reasons why I was in a place was I am a nerd. I am an English major. I don't care about theorems. You want to hear my theorem story? I have a theorem story in high school. Sister Gladys at Assumption Academy in my final exam. I just filled out a bunch of junk and I turned it in and my exam was over in like 10 minutes. People are like, where's he going? I'm looking through the window. Bye, everybody. She's looking at it going, no, this is totally wrong. I got the theorem wrong because I just made it up. I didn't care whether I passed Algebra 3. True story. Sister Gladys is dead. You can't call her, ask her. But trust me, right? So I am a nerd. I am a quick study. I do learn on the fly. It's important to me. I like doing that in the workplace. I like that I was a little, I had been telling the storytelling seminar enough times where I'm like, I want to do something different that's just as effective. And I pulled something out from a recent conversation with my niece. I do that. Look what I did. It's important to me. It's a value. It's a thing. It's on number 2 on my list. When I was in the workplace, I was that guy. I will be that guy for you, Sally. I will be that for you, Mr. Hiring Manager, if you hire me. Here is this, when you hire me. Here's the story illustration, right? That goes with the value. And then I'll give you one more example. Oh yeah, there was a time, here's my News Minute. Here's my News Minute version of that. Yeah, I'm a quick study. There was a time when I was working in TV news, and we had a website where they were trying to make digital a big deal, and I figured out a way to make the server work for us with pre-rolls and post-roll advertising, which everybody hates, by the way. But I was able to save our company $675,000 doing it. So I'll learn on the fly. That's the News Minute version of that story, and I could have a News Agenda version of that story if you want. Right? That's what you're going to do. But if you don't do that, that's 80% of the people. 80% of the people are going to not do that. It's the 20% of the people who are going to get the jobs when they do some of that legwork. The prosecutor, and they're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea she was that good. She's so awesome. Her prosecution conviction rate is like 99 point something percent. I can't believe she's so good. You know why? Because she's doing the prep work. Because she's building her theory of the case. She's spending a lot of time on it. Okay? I mentioned a strategy is to tell the story from the point of view of the hiring manager is always a good one. The News Minute News Agenda right through is a way for you to decide what you want to leave in and what you want to leave out. Okay? I didn't put in there that I had a huge problem with a member of the TV news team who didn't like, because I could, I left it out. I chose to leave it out. I did that in the preparation. Now that you hear it, you go, oh, I've had people say to me, whatever happened to Ellen, the mint chocolate chip free ice cream cone lady, high school kid. People have asked me about that. I could tell you about it. We ended up dating. I dated her for 3 years. It was great. But she originally didn't go, what you put in, what you leave out. Okay? That's the building of your theory of the case. This is what I believe happened. This is me working for you. Now, go back and vote, I'm hiring you to the jury, right? Closing arguments, all that. Okay? We're out of time, so I want to say one more thing and then I'm going to be done. Two more things and I'll be done. One's very quick. This one's actually really quick, but I want you to write down, if you're taking notes, I want you to write down the words, I want you to write down the phrase money shot or money quote. Either one. SOT is S-O-T, sound on tape. It's a soundbite. It's a quote. It's called a money quote. And I want you to have this as part of your arsenal for your storytelling menu that goes along with the three things. And the money shot in TV parlance, or the money quote in newspapers, sometimes it's called a pull quote. They'll pull it out. It's the thing that's on the headline. It's the thing that's in the cold open. It's the thing that's in the tease. Coming up tonight at 11, coming up tonight at 10, and then the person goes, I can't believe that is the money quote. It's the thing that you are going to say to the job, in the job interview, to the hiring manager, come hell or high water. Even if they don't ask you about it, even if there's no question that relates to it, you're going to pivot to it and say it anyway. Okay? I'm going to say this thing because this is me. This is the thing that I care the most about in my life, that I will die for. Okay? I had a news director once said to me when I was going for a job as a producer, I want to ask you a question I ask all my job candidates, okay? Would you die for me? And I turned to him and I turned to him. I physically turned to him. We're at a railing at a mall in Rochester, New York, overlooking the fountain. And I turned to him and I go, would you die for me? And he told me later, that's why I hired you. Okay? That might be a money quote for me, maybe. Someone asked me a couple of seminars ago. Remember we were here and they said, what's your money quote? I'm like, I haven't had to come up with one in such a long time because I don't go on job interviews. But you want to have that thing that is like, you go home to your spouse and they go, did you tell them about the thing? You go, it never came up. It never came up. Are you out of your mind? That thing. What is that thing for each individual, for each of you? Write that down. And then have an illustration, have a story to go with it. Even if you have to just do it as a pivot from a question that is, if the person goes, have you ever been to China? And you go, no, but you want to know something though, dude? Ellen, mint chocolate chip ice cream and friendly ice cream. Like, what? What is yours? I'm gonna get that in there if I have, I worked 2 jobs. I did 2 paper routes as a kid, and it taught me about work ethic. While all my buddies were off playing home run derby at Norwood Park, I was working on. I was like leaving Forest Park Circle or Forest Hill Drive, and I was going to Woodbine to do the second newspaper route. Why? Because Sam Mercurio didn't have anybody to deliver newspapers, and I said, "I'll do it, Sam. I volunteer to do all the hard work, Bob. That's who I am when I bring this job." Right? I'm getting that in there. I'm going to get that money quote in there with an illustration that goes with it. So then when they say I got the job or I didn't have the job, at least I feel good that I sold that very thing that I was about. And too many people miss the opportunity to say that thing. And they excuse it away, or they rationalize it away, or they justify it, or they say it just never came up. And I'm saying, too bad, tough. Pivot to it. Say it anyway. Okay? It's called the money shot. I tell everybody that. Take it right out of television. I'm telling you it works. You'll feel good about yourself, if nothing else, even if you don't get the job, that you put your very best foot forward and you did it with storytelling technique. That's better than just reciting facts. All right, that's it. So the last thing is, don't be perfect. Don't be perfect. Just start. Okay? I always tell people, we've been here a little over an hour. Okay, I'm just scratching the surface. I spent 30 years in the business. I still don't think I'm really that good of a storyteller. There are people who spend a lifetime just trying to figure it out. You're not going to knock it out of the park in just an hour. Okay? So don't try to be perfect. You're not going to get it exactly right. But I'm telling you from experience, and I know this in my heart to be true, if you tell stories as opposed to just reciting data, if you're at your church, I'm over at Christ UMC, and they're putting pie charts up, talking about you need to give me more money. Okay? Pie charts? How about we're going to be able to help 3 additional kids, right? Meet Billy. See, Billy is a latchkey kid. When he goes home from school, he says, now, could you imagine if you helped Billy and 3 of his buddies? See the difference? Pie charts, don't do pie charts. Don't do graphs, right? Color-coded graphs. Tell me a story. I'm telling you that it works. It will help you to make a connection. It'll humanize you. The person will remember you. As Krista said in the email and the LinkedIn promo that went out, you want to stand out. You want to be memorable. That is how to do it. Be authentic. And nobody else can be you. Tell a story. No one's going to take away my Yahoo story. No one's going to take away my AOL story. People don't even know what AOL is anymore. And you've got mail. That's right. Yes, ma'am. Right.
New ways. Research files. Higher position job, but not. You need that improvement.
Yeah. Sure.
You're saying that putting those numbers into your story.
Right. Right. So then that falls under that's a great question. Let me connect the dots. That falls under the heading of have it make a point. There's a point why I'm telling you this story. Right? So if I'm going for a job as an accountant and I do know that 2 + 2 = 4, I might turn that story around and go, I went to school with a guy, he was my best friend. Yeah. He said to Dr. Zelton, 2 + 2 doesn't have to equal 4 because one of the two is hold today. Yeah, I don't do that. Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm actually really meticulous about it. Kim has been helping me actually with learning more about how to like format a cell so that I can make Excel do even more wizardry on it because I'm such a geek about that, right? If I needed to. And now it's going to have a point. I just worked Kim into the story, right? I just worked Dr. Shelton back into the story and my imaginary best friend. But there was a point to it, and the point was the data that you talked about. Sure, I saved you $1 million. Sure, I created this kind of revenue. Sure, I can add the number of salespeople, leads, 60 phone calls a week. Yeah, sure, you come up with all the data you want, but just don't do it in a pie chart. I didn't do an I didn't do a PowerPoint. Did anybody notice? Does anybody care? I could have. I chose not to. I stopped doing it because it sort of defeats the purpose of some of the things that I'm talking about. And anyway, no one watches PowerPoint slides anymore. They don't even do them on TED Talks mostly. They used to. And I used to have Glinda with her little lady in the bubble right before it went away. I had a picture of Niagara Falls before there was water. And I asked people, what is this? What's that a description of? And they're like, I have no idea. It's a rock formation. And some guy goes, it's Niagara Falls. I'm like, correct. Do you know that Niagara Falls has been manipulated like 3 or 4 different times? The Tourism Board, the U.S. Commerce Department, all kinds of governments of Canada and America, they've been Army Corps of Engineers. They manipulate, blow up that rock. All right, let's try it. All right, now blow up that rock. Oh, no, move that over. They've manipulated it like 3 or 4 times in its history. It doesn't just naturally look like that. I was using that as an illustration to say, do your prep work. Do your homework. Don't just turn on the spigot and expect your job to just fall into your lap. And so on my PowerPoint, I put up a picture of a rock formation that was Niagara Falls. And that's all that was there. So when you said, can I have your deck? I go, yeah, sure. You're like, what the hell is this rock? I'm like, well, you need me to actually explain the rock, right? That sort of gets back to what we're talking about. That's all I got. If you need anything that's more in depth than that, like any of those points, I always offer to go to coffee with people. And, if you have something specific that you want to look at, I'd be more than happy to help you with that as a further contribution of the ministry that is here, that I first joined about 7 or 8 years ago. And I love it. And I think Jay and Scott and Hal and back when Hal was here, and remember Hal? And
I do remember
and
but yeah, he's retired.
And Krista and so I would be more than happy just to continue the conversation in some other setting. But I wish you luck with your storytelling. So.
Yeah. Great as always. That's why we've had him do it 5 times. So good. But
I'll be back in September with seminar on networking, right?
That's right. That's right.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, he's gonna come back and visit us again. But awesome. Well, thanks for everybody for being here. Appreciate it. Yeah, we'll be back here in a couple weeks. Check out the website. Do the survey.
Yay.
Yay.
Yeah.
Survey?